Hello, my little cupcakes. I have a great story for you today. Curious George and the Birthday Surprise. I'm going to read the words and then show you the pictures. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today is a very special day, the man with the yellow hat told George at breakfast. I have a surprise planned and lots to do to get ready. You can help me by staying out of trouble. George was happy to help. Oops. They're having breakfast and he said, stay out of trouble, George. We have a surprise planned. Later, while George was looking out the window and being very good, he heard some tinkling music. It was coming from an ice cream truck. George watches the whole line of children and their dogs enjoyed some ice cream. It looked like fun. But when the ice cream truck moved on, George forgot all about staying out of trouble and went to find some fun of his own. So here's some tinkling music. He looked outside and the ice cream truck was there with all these kids, their dogs, and they were getting ice creams. George forgot he was supposed to stay out of trouble. In the living room, George found noisemakers and hats and games. Could this be part of his friend's surprise? Before George could find out, he spotted some streamers, balloons, and colored tissue. He could not resist. But George couldn't resist. He found all these things, hats and streamers, balloons, noisemakers. He couldn't resist. Decorating was easy for a little monkey. Still, George was curious about the surprise. And what was that good smell coming from the kitchen? George followed his nose. So here George decorated everything, seemed swinging around. He decorated the whole living room with all the things he found. He followed his nose into the kitchen. Let's see what happens. It was a cake and it looked as good as it smelled. All it needed was frosting. George had seen his friend making frosting before, but today his friend was busy. Maybe George could help and could frost the cake himself. First, George put a bit of this in the mixing bowl. Next, he had a bit of that. Then he turned the mixer on. The frosting whirled around and around. So he went into the kitchen and found that delicious cake. And he thought, I can help. I'll make some frosting. My friend's busy. Uh-oh, George, you didn't do your promise. Stay out of trouble. It was whirling too fast, but when George tried to stop the mixer, it only went faster and faster and faster. George lifted the beaters out of the bowl. Frosting flew everywhere. So he got going and he went the wrong way, I guess, in turning the mixer. He couldn't stop it. And look, he took the beaters out and it went everywhere. Oh, my word. Poor George. He did not mean to make such a mess. He only wanted to help. Now how could he clean up the sticky kitchen? Just then George heard the tinkling music again. The ice cream truck was coming back up the street, and George had an idea. Quickly, he opened the door. Look at this kitchen. It's a mess. Frosting is everywhere, but George got an idea. He ran to open the door. I wonder what he's going to do. And invited all the dogs in for a treat. In no time, the kitchen was as clean as a whistle. So all the dogs were outside waiting for ice cream. He called them in. And he let them come in and clean up all the frosting. They licked it all up. And they cleaned the kitchen as clean as a whistle. That was smart, George. When the dogs finished their snack, George took them back outside. The ice cream truck was still there. And so was his friend. George, said the man with the yellow hat, I've been looking for you. It's time for your surprise. For the surprise. George had found hats, games, decorations, and a cake. He was curious. Was the surprise a party? So he found everything. He saw his friend out there by the ice cream truck getting ice cream. And then his friend took his hand and said, I have a surprise for you. And he said, is a surprise a party? Yes, it was a party. George was happy to see all of his friends. They were glad to see George too. What great decorations, Bill said. What a lot of presents, said Betsy. Why don't you play some games with your guests, George? The man with the yellow hat suggested. I have one more thing to do. His house was filled with guests. They loved his decorations. He had lots of gifts. And the man with the yellow hat said, why don't you play with your guests? I have one more thing to do. When George's friend came back, he was carrying a cake covered in candles. This wasn't just any party. It was a birthday party. But George was still curious. Whose birthday was it? He wanted to see who would blow out the candles. Excuse me. The man with the yellow hat put the cake down right in front of George. That was a surprise. It was George's birthday. The party was for him. Everyone sang happy birthday. Then George took a deep breath. The man with the yellow hat came out, carrying the cake, and he put it down right in front of George. It's your birthday, George. George took a deep breath and made a wish. Happy birthday, George. So he blew out the candles and made a wish for himself and said, happy birthday, George. The end. Hope you liked it.